We're excited about the outcome for our city. We're excited about having these conversations. The initiative to educate and inspire our neighbors to create a safe and welcome community, it began between myself and Adam. Adam relocated here from Albany, New York. Adam had a relationship with the YMCA there, and when he moved to Jacksonville, he shot me an email, and the conversation started then, and over the last few years, we just got to know each other. And so, as with anything else, as things started to happen in our city, we were downtown at the Visual last year, and we saw each other. We started talking about what can we do to help our community, and that conversation led to another conversation, and then we brought our teams together to talk about how we could play our part to making Jacksonville a better place. And what you're seeing now, this series, this partnership, is the result of that conversation. It's not the end, but it is the beginning, and we're going to be part of the solution for our community. We hope that when you attend any of these events, including tonight, that you have a greater appreciation for diversity in Jacksonville. We know we have a long way to go as a community, but feel this initiative, along with others, is the strength and the unity, empowering our citizens to positively engage with those who may not share the same viewpoints as they do. Adam and I, of course, couldn't do all this by ourselves. We say thanks for our talented staff at JCA and the YMCA. A lot of them are here. Thank you very much. Together Against Hate is made possible through support from CSX, the Jewish Federation and Foundation of Northeast Florida, Team Up Project, which is a national collaboration between the Catholic Charities, Habitat for Humanity International, Interfaith America, and the YMCA of the USA. We're here also tonight because of several local organizations who believe in trying to accomplish what we partner to make this Together Against Hate speaker series. Thanks to LJD, Jewish Family and Community Services, 904 Forward, JASMYN, the Arc, YMCA Daystar, OneJax, and the Interfaith Center of Northeast Florida for playing a leading role in this initiative. We'd also like to thank the City of Jacksonville and our Mayor, Donna Deegan, who has issued her support of Together Against Hate and will join us at our event with the Arc of Jacksonville on December 5th. Finally, we're so grateful to be here tonight in this beautiful historical building, and we want to say thanks to our friends, Friday Musical, I think I said that right, who opened their space to us for this event. Thank you again for all of you for being here. Please join me as I welcome our moderator for the discussion, the Director of Teen and Family Initiatives at JASMYN, Timothy Jefferson.
Good evening. How's everybody feeling? It's been a long day, but it's going to be a great conversation. As our panelists join me on the stage, we're going to have a great conversation tonight about a really important event, a really important discussion, really important issue in our community. And so we are pleased to partner with the YMCA and JCA to promote unity in the city through this program. As an advocacy center for LGBT youth and young adults and teens, we're grateful for these community partners. The Together Against Hate series and partnership is focused on inspiring all of us to come together across differences and look for common ties and messages of inclusion. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do something right. And we are happy to be a part of this series that brings us together. Now, the LGBT community has seen a rise in homophobic and transphobic expressions in the past year as lawmakers around the country are increasingly pushing laws and policies that attempt to erase LGBT community and restrict our access to safe and affirming spaces and services. Now, in some ways, this gives permission for hateful expressions to emerge. This cultural climate creates harm, especially for young people. The Trevor Project, which is a national suicide prevention program for LGBT young people, reports that transgender youth, especially transgender youth, have experienced the impact of these anti-LGBT policies and debates on their health. Some statistics are 1 in 3 transgender youth report not feeling safe enough to go to the doctor or the hospital. 1 in 3 have experienced some form of cyberbullying, and over half of those now say they have experienced some form of physical violence. Let that sink in, right? Our panelists will help us to dig deeper into these details of the impact of hate and also help guide us in how to join them in working together to resist the forces that want to divide and to diminish us. And now I will let each of these esteemed panelists introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Jennifer Cowart. I'm a local physician. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as bisexual. I'm here tonight with a group that I work with called Public School Defenders. We advocate for equitable and diverse education at Duval County Public Schools, and I'm delighted to be here tonight.
I'm Dan Merkin. I've been in Jacksonville now since February of 1999, where I came to work for JASMYN, our wonderful LGBT youth organization that's located here in the Riverside area. Currently, I'm the Chief Policy Officer. I use he, him pronouns. My educational background is I have a master's in counseling and guidance from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and that's where I lived before coming down to Jacksonville. So I've been working on LGBT issues for a long, long time, and I'm really thankful to be here.
My name is Regina Livingston. I am the founder and executive director of Unspoken Treasure Society. My organization is based out of Gainesville, Florida. However, we have a drop-in center here. We've been here a little over a year, right downtown Jacksonville, and we are direct services, CBO, that takes care of the needs of our transgender youth as well as our transgender adults. And so it's more of an education piece when we have parents that are confused and different things that they go through. So we do a plethora of things. I'd be up here all day if I told you it all.
Yeah. Thank you. Can we give a warm round of applause to our panelists? Thank you. So we have some questions we're going to ask the panelists, and then after that, there will be opportunities for you as audience participants to ask these amazing panelists questions as well. Okay, let's get started. And we can start with you, Doctor. Can each of you talk about how you have seen things progress in relation to the LGBTQIA community?
Thank you. So in the schools, we have unfortunately seen some things backslide. Some progress we thought we had seen is going away. So we are seeing a lot of attacks on things like safe space stickers or the LGBTQ plus support guide that was available in Duval County that was quite extensive and comprehensive in providing education for teachers and staff on how to approach students, that has been taken down. We are seeing the effects of state laws that are also being interpreted at the local level that are causing a lot of loss of things that we thought we had, that we were moving in a better direction. I have also personally seen and attending the school board meetings pretty regularly for the last year and a half, some very hateful language being used at school board meetings, language that I had not seen in such public spaces in a long time. And I won't repeat the words, but just trust when I say that there's people who still have deep-rooted homophobia and transphobia who will openly speak those things in public comment at the school board, and now being reflected even in some ways by some of the school board members. So it's been a worrying time. There are a lot of folks in the community who are working on this and who love and care for these students, for these staff. So I do want to say that there's hope and that we're working on it, but unfortunately we've seen some loss of progress that we thought we were moving in a better direction at the schools.
Okay. Dan, want to answer? Same question. Can you talk about how you've seen things progress, or now that we're having a bigger conversation, or not progress in relation to the LGBT community?
Wow. Well, having done this work for a very long time and having been out as a gay person since I was like, I first told someone I was gay back when I was 17, so it was a long time ago. But things have really progressed mostly in a positive direction until these last couple years. I mean, just for reference, when I was in high school, there wasn't a single person that was out. And we had a school of like 1,200 people. When I went to college, it was a different environment, a very small school. We had folks there that were actually standing up for LGBT rights, the Student Senate and the Faculty Senate, and they were trying to get non-discrimination policies passed even back in the 1990s, early 1990s. Unfortunately, the Board of Governors said no. They said no, and it took another 20 years before they finally added those non-discrimination protections at that college I went to. Coming to Jacksonville, when I first arrived, there wasn't a single registered gay-straight alliance. So that was, back in 1999. We were the largest school district in the country that didn't have a single GSA. There were a lot of things happening. I moved to a state in Florida that still had sodomy laws on the books that were in force, because they hadn't been overruled by the Supreme Court. Gay adoption was banned here. So I don't have any kids. That's a consequence of having laws in place for years and years that banned some of that. Obviously, we made progress on the marriage front, and that was really kind of a revolutionary thing, but it wasn't until after they banned it. So progress has been mostly forward, though, because those things are gone, those barriers, the sodomy laws, the adoption bans. We have full-fledged marriage. We have GSAs galore in schools. And things have really moved in the right direction. But just in this last year and a half, 2 years, we've seen a really concentrated attack on the LGBTQ community through legislation and policy. And that's where, it's really worrisome about where we're at and what those types of policies and laws empower in people. And so I'll just say that.
Regina?
For me, I've lived my entire life with feeling as if the things that are going on now could have happened at any given day, being a Black trans woman. So I've always lived my life like that. Recently, things have gotten to a panic because we have parents that are afraid. We have children that are afraid. We have children that don't know what to do from day to day because they feel as if they are locked in a box now. So I feel that we came so far and now we're being knocked back. So I think that we as a community, as a nation, have to stand because we're supposed to be free. This is supposed to be America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, but I don't feel free. And being brave, you know what that gets you. So I just feel like we have to come together and we have to stop what's going on. And it's gonna take all of us.
Thank you. So as we continue this discussion, I have a question that I'll start with you, Jennifer. You are, as you stated, you are with the Public School Defenders. Can you tell us more about your work with that organization and what's been going on with those LGBT-related policies at DCPS and how it does affect students?
Absolutely. So I alluded earlier to state laws and local policy. So I think many people are familiar with some of the most egregious state laws that have been passed in the last 2 sessions of the state legislature here in Florida. HB 1557, commonly known as Don't Say Gay, initially put in restrictions on education at the K through 3 level, But rapidly, we've seen two things. One is many state laws and regulatory changes at the state level that have become dizzying in their amount and scope. It's almost impossible to keep track of what all they have changed and to what extent the laws apply. And as a consequence of that, we have local policies, which have gone, in my opinion, above and beyond what is even required in these state laws. So for example, when there were things that were deemed not age appropriate for K through 3, all of a sudden Duval County went and completely removed the LGBTQ plus support guide from the website. There was no state law that required that. This was above and beyond. They didn't need to do that, remove a resource that was helpful for students and staff and families, but they did out of fear. And then we've seen an expansion of parental rights in education, this gaslighting term that seems to mean I have a right to affirm my child's education, and what is actually happening is a very small minority, a very extreme minority, is getting a say in what books our kids can read in school, what instruction they can receive. So as a consequence of book review laws and regulations passed by the state, which were difficult to interpret, poorly written, and delayed in presentation, the Duval County Public Schools decided to err on, quote, the side of caution as they were directed by the state, and they removed over 1 million books from local libraries and media centers across Duval County schools. So this is elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. I believe elementary schools probably impacted at the greatest extent because they have the most books in their media centers. A lot of the upper grades, their media centers have more computers. Classroom libraries were never intended to be part of this law, but they were interpreted as they must be reviewed by Duval County, again, to protect teachers from draconian penalties and fines and review by the state. So this consequence has led to things like my kids in elementary school have no classroom libraries anymore in their schoolrooms. I go to their classrooms and there are no books, only the little readers provided. We have seen book challenges and book bans across the state. It's much easier now for any one person. They don't have to be a parent. They don't have to have a kid in school. They don't even have to live in your county. They can go and go to a list of books published by these pro-book banning organizations, and they can file challenges to many books, and these books have to be removed within 5 days and immediately reviewed by a certified media specialist. So across the state, we've seen books banned, such as Amanda Gorman's famous poem from President Biden's inauguration. We've seen a graphic novel version of Anne Frank's diary challenged and removed in some school districts because of content it contains. We've seen content from LGBTQ+, even mildly LGBTQ+ content like And Tango Makes Three, which is about 2 male penguins raising a baby penguin chick. This has been deemed, quote, pornography by some extreme groups, and it is therefore getting removed. We've seen restrictions on students being called by their pronouns of choice, or even being allowed to say that they have a pronoun of choice. We had to fill out a form for our daughter to use her nickname of Ellie, which she has used since birth. And we wrote on there, she may be called Ellie or whatever name or pronoun she wishes to be called, because it shouldn't matter. But this is the level of extreme that we're getting to now in Duval County. So teachers are scared, students are not feeling safe to be themselves at school. Teachers are afraid to allow their students to be themselves, or to be themselves at all. If they are in a queer marriage or queer relationship, it's difficult for them to speak that forward. They're afraid as well. So this climate of fear in our schools is growing. I do just want to wrap that up, though, by saying, again, though this sounds very scary, I agree very much with Regina that we have to stand together against all of that, and that's how we have hope in this environment.
Thank you. I do have a follow-up question. We talk about book banning, and we always hear how books are being taken off the shelves. Is there a process that people can be a part of where you can state, what's the word I want to use? Fight against the book being taken off the shelf? Is there a process for that? Is there a way that people can do that? to fight to keep those books on the shelf?
That's a great question. It's much easier to challenge a book and have it removed. But there are folks within Duval County who are generally consider themselves pro-book, and they do want to have that availability if a book is challenged for the community to review it and be able to speak for it. But that's very difficult when, again, something over 1 million books still haven't been reviewed in the first place and are, warehoused. So, but I think the biggest thing, and I'll speak to this again later, but is come to school board, go to your kids' schools, find out what books are in there, and advocate over and over and over again that our kids need books.
Okay, thank you. So as we were talking about young people, and a lot of our young people from the stats who identify as transgender are going through, having all of these issues and are not feeling safe. Especially trans women of color face more violence, right, than anyone else, and who are not safe, who are the least safe. Regina, can you talk about the work that Unspoken Treasures is doing to support the transgender community, and what more can be done to support people of trans experience?
The things that we do, we have support groups. We have a drop-in center here in Jacksonville that they can come at any given time. We have a computer room where they can look for a job. We have a plethora of resources as far as I deal with a lot of partnering agencies that can help if they need something that goes beyond what we do. But what we do is we try to provide a safe space where they can come in, be themselves, feel themselves, and be safe and feel comfortable. So we do that. There are so many calls that I'm getting as of late about people trying to leave. So we're trying to develop an emergency fund to possibly help people who need to get away, people who may need to go to a hotel. There's just so many different vague laws in place now, and they're vague because they want people to be afraid. And I work directly with Simone Chris, which is a lawyer that's fighting for LGBT rights consistently, daily. So she tells us what's valid and what's not. So a lot of the reasoning that they're making all the laws vague is so people can just be afraid, because it doesn't necessarily mean specifically what you think it means, but you're gonna look at the law, you're just gonna say, oh no, I don't wanna do that. So we're just providing a space for them to come and be safe, and we're providing a space for them to come and do what feels right for them.
Okay, thank you. So in speaking about violence, right, that Regina, you were talking about, Dan, as a policy director at JASMYN, you are in and you have a lot of discussions around the state laws and the local laws that are affecting, and federal laws that are affecting all LGBT people. Would you mind talking about your work that you're doing with SWAB and explain what that is, and how you building relationships with community organizations and how that impacts the LGBT community? And then I have a second question for you.
Yeah, it's such a long history. Unfortunately, early in my career with JASMYN, we got introduced to LGBT violence, and we lost one of our early volunteers who was murdered. And that was sort of our first introduction to the reality of LGBT violence as an organization as JASMYN. So Terry Ann Summers, people remember her as like going on 20-something years that she was killed in her driveway, ironically on the street where I now live. So that was our first introduction, is to, like, we needed to start thinking about how do we address violence, how do we build relationships to address these things. So even back then, we did Justice for Terry Ann, was an organization we formed, and we worked with the JSO and the FBI and others. We got involved in the hate crimes task force that was back in the early 2000s. And then, for a while we had some quiet, and we didn't have too many high-profile incidents. But, we've lost a lot of folks over the years. JASMYN particularly, lost another staff person to violence and murder, and they moved away and were murdered in Miami. And so it's a really sad reality, so we felt firsthand how transgender women, especially transgender women of color, have been impacted. And so Then in 2016, we got the really big wake-up call with the shooting at Pulse. And that really struck our community really hard in ways that we, really hadn't comprehended before about, what could happen in that reality. And so, we, at that time, said we really need to figure out some strategies and get involved and really start to build those relationships with law enforcement, which was, difficult. Many in the LGBT community have trepidation about law enforcement and always have, based on historical, because a lot of these really bad laws and policies that we talk about, historically those were enforced by law enforcement, and so people have had really bad experiences in their past. But knowing that, there's unfortunately, there's only so many bodies that really have the power to do some of the things that need to be done. So in 2017, we approached the sheriff at that time. We made sure that there was some movement. So the sheriff at that time, well, actually earlier than that, 2016, they changed the non-discrimination policy in the sheriff's office. That was a step forward to include sexual orientation, gender identity. And in 2017, we had a series of transgender women that were murdered. And we had many community members come out and say, we really need to make some changes. So at that time, the sheriff established an LGBT liaison team to the community and also started initiating some training initiatives so that all members of the force, including administrators, would get some training on LGBT issues. And I, for a long time, was doing some training with recruits. Now, I'll just tell you that under the new sheriff, it seems like some of that's been rolled back. So some of the diversity training and things like that we were doing not happening, and people need to know that. So I went through this JSO Citizens Academy, FBI Citizens Academy, and in the last couple of years, we really started building relationships with Homeland Security as well. And we know we need to do that because, JASMYN has a physical location, and based on what we've been seeing around the country, these hate groups are, they're targeting drag brunches, they're targeting LGBT centers, and it's, worrisome on our staff and our young people that attend our services and programs. We're all about safe space. JASMYN, from our very, very beginning, in our very earliest mission statements, we're about creating safe space, and we still are dedicated to doing that. So we've had to make changes. We have an armed security guard now. We have had since pretty much around December of last year. For other groups, that may have been a more commonplace to have that type of security, but for us, that was a big change, and it had to reflect the reality that we're in. And a lot of that is driven by these groups that are empowered to target the LGBT community. It comes from some of the highest levels of government when they're putting out press releases calling people that support the LGBT community groomers and pedophiles. That's hate. When you're misrepresenting a whole group of people for the purposes of, political gain or demonizing or trying to, subject somebody, it's really where it's coming from. So we continue to go out and do education. We spent a lot of time in the last year. I know Equality Florida and myself, we put together a whole thing with Homeland Security back last year and provided all sorts of resources how organizations can protect themselves from protesters, infiltrators, threats, that sort of stuff. And then we've also done a few sessions just trying to review the six anti-LGBT laws that were passed in the last session, in addition to the 2 that were passed in the previous 2 years. So that's 8 anti-LGBT laws passed in a 3-year stretch. And again, others have referenced just the confusion around those laws and the fear that they bring because of their vagueness and how those that oppose us have weaponized them to make them go beyond what the law actually says. So,
Okay, thank you. I do have a follow-up question for you also, Dan. Are there any laws that are coming, any more laws that are coming that are going to negatively affect LGBTQIA people that you know of?
well, it's a tough question because, we're not in session. We know, at the federal level, we still have a divided Congress, so odds are not high that anything anti-LGBT is going to make a lot of progress, at least in both chambers of the Congress, so that's a good thing. But at the state level, going into an election year, and the session starts earlier, so we'll be seeing the session start in January. And we know there were a lot of other bills that were stopped in the last session, in addition to the ones that did pass, which we were able to modify. So they have a whole playbook of things that they are probably going to introduce and try and push forward. And we don't know what those are. And that's part of the thing that makes it so scary and challenging, is that we're not getting just attacked on one front in the legislation. They're coming at us from all sides in all sorts of different ways, and it really makes it hard to, it's really hard to put out the fires when they're lighting all the corners at once on your house. And so that's the reality.
Okay, thank you. So we're still, we're talking about hate, and we know that hate involves violence, right? And this is for all panelists, and Regina, we can actually start with you on this question. What can people do to prevent violence directed at the LGBTQIA plus community? And then we can just move this way.
Stand for them. When they're not around, stand for them. It's more important for you to stand for me when my back is turned than when I'm looking forward, because that lets people know that you don't agree and you won't stand for that. So stand for them. And it's just important to have safety nets. Keep great communication with your family and friends that you know are going through this fight. The people are actually living it. And if you consider yourself an ally, walk with them. Step in front of them. Just be there. Because that's what we do. As a black trans woman, we are the people who come to the scene first to stand up and fight all the time. And then when something happens to us, crickets. And so that's why it's so important for you to stand for your people. Be there. Be there for them. That's the most important thing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. Regina's so right. I mean, that really is where it starts. Each of you has a power, to speak up in any room that you're in when you hear things. And we know, people are having conversations out there, and some of them are fear-based, and some of them are afraid of what will happen to them if they support LGBT people. And sometimes they just need someone to hold their hand and say, we can support them together, and we can fight back against, the stuff that's being pushed right now. Because we know historically, we have seen mostly progress until this last year and a half. And part of that is that the LGBT community has really gained so much in terms of general acceptance, but there's still a long ways to go. But the other piece of that, I would say, is that, in addition to being an advocate within whatever rooms you're in, is to be really aware of the services out there, because we're in this increased hostile environment. Unfortunately, what it's going to lead to is some of the things that we saw a lot more of in the past, which is, families that are empowered may reject their children, and that might lead them to become homeless or out on the streets. So we're going to need more and more support for services. We know kids in schools right now. We had a young person testify during the public comment. They're in school right now, and they're feeling not supported and scared, transgender person, and they want to know what the school district's going to do to make them feel that they belong, that they are supported in that system. And so, that young person needs to know that the community stands with them So part of it is showing up to those places like school board meetings, and then also supporting those that provide resources and services and programs. You know, for a lot of those parents out there that that might benefit from a conversation of PFLAG. Just sort of like counteract some of the things that they might be hearing. So I'll just say those couple things. There's probably a zillion more, but we'll have a lot of time to talk. So.
I agree with everything that my co-panelists have said. I also think we all in this room inhabit different spaces, and we can all be that ally in all of the spaces. So you all have taken a great step in being here tonight, which is wonderful. And then tomorrow, when there's a conversation at work or your family or a friend on the phone, you can tell them you were here, you can tell them what we talked about, you can stand up for our community members when they're struggling. So I think all of us, no matter how small or large our scale of influence, we might be thinking like, what can I do as one person? But we all have friends, we all have family members, we can talk about things, and we can speak up for people who, as Regina said, when she's not there, we can still speak on her behalf to protect, for protection, not to take her voice, but to protect her if someone is saying things about her and her community. So I just want to elevate everything my colleagues said and agree with that everyone here has a voice and has agency and can make a little bit of difference, and we need that now.
Okay, thank you. So I know we've been talking about something that's really heavy, it's very anxiety-inducing, but as we're coming to the end of the panel, before we have questions from the audience, I want to leave a little bit of hope, a little bit note of hope here. What can people do, and we can start with you, Dr. Jennifer, what can people do to make a difference or impact the LGBTQIA+ community?
So I'll start off with bringing it back to the schools, because that's where I've been discussing. Obviously not the only thing we can do, but it's near and dear to my heart. So if you're able to, join us at school board meetings. You don't have to say a thing if you don't want to. Come and sit in the audience with us, wear a rainbow, we've got extra pins we'll give you. Come and join us. Come and stand up for our community. This is an intersectional fight. The same folks who were saying hateful things about the LGBTQ+ community are saying hateful things about the African American community. They're saying hateful things sometimes about the Jewish community or anti-Semitic things. This is an intersectional fight. We're all rowing the same direction. I'm going to stand for a diverse and equitable education regardless of who that student is. So come to the school board. If you're not able to come to the school board, it's not something that you're able to do right now, but if your kid's in school and you can join that PTA or that SAC, that's also beautiful, because that's where some of the fight is happening. So tomorrow night, when I'm not here, I'm going to my kid's SAC so that I can hear what's going on and speak my voice for get the books back in the classes. So if you have any interest in our schools as a community member, it doesn't matter if you don't have children in the schools. If you live in this community, you benefit from an educated and diverse population. So come join us at the school board. We'll be happy to show you how to get there. So let me turn it over to Dan and Regina, but come to the school board.
Ditto. I think we probably between us gone to 60 school board meetings in the last 2 years. So, yeah, I think it's so important. Again, I kind of referenced it earlier, but I think just make sure that you support the organizations that do those direct services, like the ones that Regina run, like JASMYN, like PFLAG, like UNF. Well, that's one of the casualties of the late recent law. The UNF LGBT Center was a great resource. It's kind of up in the air where that's going to be. But support those organizations so that when individuals who are being impacted need the assistance, need someone to support them, hold their hand, help them out, whatever's going on, that they're there. Another thing is when you see stuff that's problematic, when people are engaging in discrimination or they are engaging in hateful behavior, make sure you report it. That's really critical. I'll say one thing that, JASMYN, we have an online reporting form on our website. So we take any report incidences that are related to discrimination or violence on our website. It can be left anonymously, but anything that's happened in the last 5 years in the 5-county area, we're happy to take that report. And if somebody wants assistance or follow-up, I usually follow up with them directly and try and provide them additional resources. So if they need to figure out how do I file a complaint with the Human Rights Commission, I'll give them the links to all of that and walk them through the process. We have someone from the Human Rights Commission here. Hi. You know, it's that stuff. Or if they need follow-up, maybe they need a victim's advocate. You know, I would make sure they got those types of numbers. And I think those are things that people just need to be aware that those resources exist so you can link people into them. But yeah, Regina.
I think you all need to pay close attention to the marginalized communities, the communities that they don't feel like they have a voice. You have Unspoken Treasure Society here that solely, you know, pretty much takes care of those people. You have TAP, Transgender Awareness Project, that's here as well with their leader, Paige Mahogany Parks, that is out daily fighting laws. She's not only doing the direct services, she's also going to the meetings. She's also sitting with the governor. I mean, not the governor. Scratch that completely. But she's sitting. She was one of the people that fought for Donna Deegan to get elected. She was one of the people that brings the legislation here to the table and makes them stand on the things that they say. So it's important to pay attention to those marginalized communities because we're the ones that are doing the work after midnight when we get those phone calls of people who need hotel rooms, people who need a meal. You know, just before I came here, I was stuck sitting in a room with a young lady who I couldn't just leave her in the situation that she was in. So we need support. We really do. So when you ask what can you do if you're afraid to be on those front lines, donate. If you don't want to donate or you may not have it to donate, come to the events that we host and we have. We not only do we look out for us, we also give back to community. We feed the homeless. We give back when the kids get ready to go to school. It's not just LGBTQIA children that comes and gets those things. So we look out for community and we give back. So just give us what we give you all, support.
At this time, we can open up for any questions from the audience. YMCA has a microphone, so he's going to be running around a little bit. If you have any questions.
Hi, Jessica Wilson, Equality Florida. I just have a quick fun question. Queer joy is resistance. What's something that's happened recently that brings you joy?
Any panelist can start.
Whew. You know what brings me joy? Getting up in the morning and knowing I have another day to fight for my community. Yeah.
Well, it just happened. So we just had a whole week of Pride events. And while they're a little bit of work, it does bring me joy to see so many people come out from so many different parts of the community to support all these different events, you know, everything from the parade and the festival to the smaller events. Equality Florida had an amazing gala at the stadium. You know, JASMYN's got the breakfast coming up. And these type of events that pull people together and really let us be in the same room and share space and energy, that brings me a lot of joy. That's one of the reasons I've been able to last in this field for 20-something years, is because I really do value all of that, you know, energy. People. Yeah.
Exactly. The Pride Parade that happened this weekend, that was the first time that we had our organization there as a specific entity. And there were folks who came out to join the parade with our group who had never been to a Pride Parade before. Said that it was wonderful. They felt community. It was healing to them to see people out in support to feel, loved and accepted, to, watch my kid throwing candy and it falling on the street and everybody laughed, but it was fun and he thought it was fun, they thought it was fun. Those little things, help us keep going. And then, so we brought music last night to stand outside the school board and just to have a little something additional to thank the people who are coming out and standing with us at the school board. So anytime that you can find those moments where you can have a little community, have a little joy, it's important. And if your organization that you're with or your employer or your school is gonna have a float or gonna have people walking in that parade, it's important to be there or to stand on the sideline and wave because it helps promote that community spirit. So it was really healing for folks at some of the employers I'm aware of who saw those floats and said, I didn't know my organization did that, that's cool. It may seem like a token and a symbol. There's a lot of work to be done on the front lines. We want to do those things. But for one day a year, let's have a parade and let's have fun and see the community out in support.
Thank you. I was trying to be Oprah, not comment. Oprah doesn't comment, so she just sits there and gets everybody else's business. So for me, what brings me joy is the fact that I can get up every morning, like Regina says, you get up and fight another day, and that I can fight for young people at JASMYN. I've been at JASMYN for 10 years, and JASMYN is turning some years old. I should know that by now, because we're there for 10 years. And Cindy Watson is here, who's the CEO, so I probably won't have a job tomorrow, because how many years we open? What, 30? 30? So yeah, 30. So JASMYN open for 30 years, and so I come to do that work. I'm able to do that work with young people for the past 10 years. I'm able to fight battles that they aren't able to fight themselves. That's what brings me joy.
You're saying QIA+, and I don't know what IA stands for, and I also don't know what SAC is.
IA? And what was the second part?
Yeah, so I'll take the second one. So School Advisory Council is SAC. So a lot of our public schools have both organizations, the Parent-Teacher Association or Parent-Teacher-Student Association. So it could be a PTA or a PTSA. They're usually the folks doing some kind of a bake sale or a fundraiser. And then the SAC, the School Advisory Council, partners with the school administration. But it's also parents and community members around that school. Thank you for your question, and I should have clarified that sooner.
I can do that. So Q is usually queer questioning. A can be asexual. Sometimes it's also ally, depending on the context. I is intersex. And there's a bunch of other letters we could probably go into as well. But for shorthand, we like LGBTQAI+.
By the time we finish, we'll probably have the whole alphabet.
They may be, right, they may be. Can we give a round of applause to our YMCA person? He's running track over here.
Hi, I'm Darlene Finch-Kuhn. I run the Jax by Jax Literary Arts Festival, and I'm very interested in finding out how we can get some of the banned books into the hands of students when they can't get them at schools. I'd love to work with you on that. So what are your ideas? How do you get a banned book into the hands of a student who wants to read it and not get arrested?
Great
or
question.
get arrested and then y'all will bail us out or something.
Exactly. It's a wonderful question. So I first want to say we need to keep advocating at the schools to get the books back in schools, because getting them there is the first place they need to be. But next best line of defense is going to be protecting our public libraries. So in some states, public libraries have now come under fire, banning books, replacing boards, even trying to pull funding from public libraries. So let's make sure our public libraries are open, because they are going to be the next line of defense where any student can walk in with their Duval County Public Schools ID, and they can have, that's their library card, and they can check out books for free. The next line of defense can be some of these the small libraries, the local libraries, 90 Forward, Rebel Readers, some other groups putting the little libraries out. And so Little Free Libraries, thank you. And so that's another organization that you can partner with. They are watching those banned book lists. I don't even want to try to recreate it because it changes so rapidly. But they can make sure that books that are frequently banned or challenged can be put into those Little Free Libraries.
Yeah, and they have an organization, Mom Demands Action. What they do is, anybody, okay. We did an event.
Oh, great.
They have a lot of books, and they be at different rallies, events, so that's another organization to get with, far as banned books too.
Absolutely.
I know we had a plethora of books when we did the back to school, because the one thing is they can arrest me because I work as a CBO, an advocate. So there's not a law yet against that. So come to Unspoken Treasure and read books all day if you want to.
So, hey, not a question, but kudos. We went to the Pride Parade on Sunday, and just to see how affirming and supportive that was, and to see how many organizations were marching, and then how many people were there supporting it. Whoever is I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes to get all those banks and all those corporations there. Just great work, whoever did that, because I think it really made a great statement for the community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your work, first of all. The question I had was, I'm really curious when you mentioned about the stats related to the hate crimes. What of those are domestic or intimate partner violence? I was just thinking about that intersectionality there.
Well, I can,
I answer a little bit and then I want Paige to answer the rest of that. I'm just gonna tell you, it's a stigma on trans women that they are killed for doing sex work. So just because it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they were walking down the street, or just because they were in a area known for sex work, 9 times out of 10, in a lot of these murders that have been happening, especially as far as recently, it's been an intimate partner. It's been someone who was either their boyfriend, it's been someone that they've had several encounters with. And so a lot of times they like to hide that fact. But we know, and it comes out. So it's really starting to uncover, and that stigma is starting to go away. Because a lot of the cases have been boyfriends and people that they've been in a relationship with for a matter of years.
Dan, would you like to add?
and I was just going to say, in terms of like federal hate crimes, they do track that. Our hate crimes laws we have a federal hate crimes law that sexual orientation and gender identity are covered in parts of the federal hate crimes law, but not all parts of it, because based on when laws were passed, and if the older laws, if they include sex, some of that's now being interpreted to include sexual orientation and gender identity, which is a great thing. But about 20-something% of all the hate crimes fall into that category of based on sexual orientation or gender identity. The other bigger categories are race and religion, and those are some of the bigger ones. But we're still about 1 in 5 of the reported hate crimes are directed at LGBT. In Florida, I just want to also point out, people should know this, we do have a statute on hate crimes, but it's very incomplete. So it's a enhancement penalty. So basically, if you get charged with a crime and it's determined there's a hate component, they can charge you more. But while it includes sexual orientation, it doesn't include sex and it doesn't include gender identity. And so transgender people still could be the victim of a hate crime in Florida, and it wouldn't be charged that way because it's not part of the law.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Great questions, great conversation. Yes. Here, right here.
I'm Dana Riley, and I work at a church in this neighborhood, and I'm curious about how the church has acted to maybe undermine And how is the church, in your opinion, responsible for some of the hate that's been spewed? And what can we do to rise up against that?
$1 million question.
Heavy question.
I grew up Southern Baptist, and I'm not Southern Baptist anymore because it was not affirming. The opposite. They were trying to ban Disney World visits at that time because of, even back in the 90s. So I would say if your church is affirming, be open and loud about your affirming status.
For me, I grew up in a black household that was not affirming. And I went to a church that preached against, my lifestyle. However, the church now is modernized a little bit. And you learn that it's better to accept people for who they are and preach to their souls. You don't need to worry about who they go home and sleep with. Just preach to their souls and love them. Because a lot of times, just loving people can change things. But at the same token, accept people for who they are, because God did, and he does. When you read the Bible, you see that he accepted the whores and the adulterers. Those were the people that were sitting right by him. So just accepting people for who they are and praying and working with them, I think is most important. You don't even so much have to affirm them, but you accept them for who they are because you go to church as who you are. And just preach to them and preach to their souls. You never know what could happen.
Yeah. This is a tough question because what are the drivers of some of the homophobia and transphobia? Obviously, a component of that does have a basis in religion, some religions, not all religions. And, even within religion, we have wide spectrums of, we have very progressive Baptists, and we have folks that, are very literalist and, hellfire and brimstone. And that's all within the same header of Baptist, right? And so it's really hard to categorize and say any one religion, but it varies. But that is certainly an influence. And of course, culture is a piece. And, we also have issues with misogyny and patriarchy, and those also influence anti-LGBT sentiments. And so, when we have all these things to take away women's rights to choose and have autonomy over their own bodies, that, that piece is really critical to the LGBT community as well, because it's again about enforcing patriarchy and those norms onto a community. Yeah, it's okay. You can applaud that. So, and just for disclosure, I grew up Serbian Eastern Orthodox. That's the religion I attended as a young person growing up, and I do that anymore. But certainly it was a very conservative religion, and it was not immune to homophobia. It was ironic. I mean, at one point when I was young, we had a gay priest. It wasn't open about it, but people knew. And then later on, he was replaced with somebody that was really more in line with sort of the very orthodox components. And the little 3-page brochure made sure to put in there. It's like homosexuals are welcome as long as they're sexually abstinent. So that was an important thing to say about the church in the very little limited space that they had to say what they were about. So, it's a reality. Church can be a driver of those things, but also churches can be one of the great change agents, and really many have come a long way in a short time.
I think that, I know for certain that growing up black and growing up as Baptist, those two right there was stigma, and we was taught in church from our pastors that growing up homosexual is a sin. So a lot of that we see today that's happened to murder of transgender people and gay folks is derived from the church. And it is taught that if you're homosexual, you're going to hell. If you're this and that, you're going to hell. So a lot of black men, talking about black men, okay? A lot of black men, they still have that in their mind. They're growing up, and I'm messing with this person. I'm dealing with this transgender woman or this homosexual person over here. I'm dealing with them. That can send me to hell. So they have, oh my God, you can go deep. But they had that in their mental state already about they're going to hell. So that misogyny kicks in where, you know, them or me. You know, they're too spooked about who's going to know that they're homosexual, who's going to know that they deal with a transgender woman or whatever. So they project the violence on the LGBT community. You know, and it's not up, I hear this a lot of times, that it's up to 50 to women to tell men how to treat gay people and all that. It's not women's job to teach men how to teach the LGBT community. It's no women's job. So people can't, a lot of transgender women say that, but we can't put that out on women because it's not their job to teach men, you know, how to treat transgender or LGBT people, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for a few more questions.
Hello, my name's Rochelle Price. I want to know if anyone, there are a lot of rules that the schools are supposed to be following. Actually, the parents are supposed to be following, right? Before they go to school, if they're, like you were saying about your daughter, she could be called Ellie, she could be called whatever. I have an instance where one of my friends has a trans female, and she filled out all the paperwork, and she was going to middle school. When she was in elementary school, she was a male. She wanted to start middle school as a female, which makes it a lot easier, right? So she filled out all the paperwork. She even double-checked, triple-checked everything. She had her name on there, and she said the very first day, start of class, they call her by the male name. So where is there accountability for the school system when they don't get it right? Because now this poor child's been bullied ever since. They have no safe place to go. And, you know, the mom was really trying to do everything that they were supposed to do, even though she was frustrated and irritated and whatever. Is there something that's being done to make sure that the teachers are being held accountable for not following the rules properly?
Do you want to take that one or me?
Why don't you get started?
Okay, well, here's the bad news. The law that was passed last session basically gave any, teacher, administrator, they do not have to use your child's pronouns. Even if the parent says, these are the pronouns that my child wants to use, and I would like you to use them, they are not required to do so. And in fact, they are explicitly in this law that passed given, the ability to not do that.
So in raw terms, if the teacher is the a-hole, they're going to continuously disrespect the child and not realizing that every time they do that, it's like an assault against that child. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Yes.
And so
I would say the recourse at the school level is probably very limited because of these laws. And the recourse that I think we would probably all recommend, unfortunately, is going to be the legal route. Going to Simone Chris's organization. It's Southern Legal Center, I think is the name of her group.
Southern Legal Counsel.
Southern Legal Counsel, where Equality Florida is tracking these incidents because, and I hate that it's come to that, but unfortunately the legal penalty may be the only way to try to recorrect the ship. The law that was initially passed, said that a teacher cannot, that parents must be notified if the kid requests to use different pronouns. Coming from this fever dream that somehow teachers are making kids trans, which is wild. But then it evolved. The next step was a teacher cannot be forced. This is very similar to stuff happening in healthcare. There was a bill passed this last session that it came up a few times before, but it finally passed, that allows basically discrimination in healthcare settings.
Exactly.
And it says doctors and nurses cannot be forced to provide care that is against their deeply held religious beliefs. I'm using all the quotations in the world. But that religious belief could include, I don't agree with abortion, and so I'm not going to participate in an abortion. I don't agree with someone being trans, and so I'm not going to care for someone being trans or gay or black or Jewish. And so the law did not provide any relief for the patient who is experiencing a medical need and needing care. So I think it's very similar, some of the bills that were passed for schools as some of the bills that were passed in healthcare, allowing for discrimination. And I think one way that we can stand up is we can complain and complain and complain at the school, and I think we gotta go to the law.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Number one, you guys, we all in this room together. Number one, everyone needs to vote. Quit voting.
Yes.
Vote is the root of all this, honey. You vote here, you vote there. Don't vote because they pretty or they saying what you want to hear for the moment. Vote the right vote and do your research. That's what it all boils down to.
Amen.
Our state legislature has a gerrymandered majority that is a supermajority of very conservative people who are passing these laws, and some of those people have seats in this area. So if your lawmaker voted for any of these laws, I would say it's time to vote them out in 2024.
Amen.
Okay, that was one. This is the last question, and then panelists will have their final remarks, and I want to be respectful of your time. Plus, I'm also hungry. We have one more.
Actually, it wasn't a question.
Okay.
Two piggybacks. Number one, you can try to vote them out, or if you're so inclined, you can run against them.
That's it.
And secondly, I recently attended a community coalition meeting with the ACLU, and they are collecting names of people who have been harmed by laws. So I will give you my card, and I will get you in contact with the woman from the ACLU who was asking for specific people, because they are putting together these lawsuits to attack these draconian laws that really are unconstitutional, but because the governor wanted them done and he had a supermajority of people who were just going to give him whatever he wanted, he got whatever he wanted. And so the only recourse now is the legislative route, the judicial route, excuse me, and we do have to go to court for these, and they are looking for plaintiffs that have been harmed.
Well, thank you so much. We'll let our panelists say their final remarks, and we will close out from there.
I'll just say join us at the school board. The next meeting will be in November. I can get you the date, and you can find us at Public School Defenders on Facebook and also on our website. If you can't go to the school board, it's the PTA or PTSA and the SAC, which I should have said is the School Advisory Council. But get active in the local schools. If you live in this community, you benefit from an educated and diverse and kind public school crowd, even if you don't have kids there. So please join us. We'd be very happy to have you sit with us.
Everything she said. Continue to come out and support LGBTQ-centric events. It's a way of showing the LGBT community that they have allies, that people care about them, that they support them, support the organizations that do the work, and really just, continue to educate those in your circles and be an advocate in the rooms that you're in. So just thank you for being here.
I'm just going to repeat what Paige said. Get out and vote. Make sure you get out and vote. Do your homework. Do your homework. Know who you're voting for. I don't vote for people just because they're black. I have to find out what their beliefs are. So please do your homework on people. Don't just vote them in. Because DeSantis said he was going to take care of the LGBTQ community too. Look how he's taking care of us. Mm-hmm. So please do your homework. Vote. See who you're voting for. And if you're intelligent and you have the credentials and what it takes to become the next governor, run for office.
Well, thank you all. Can we give a warm round of applause to these panelists? Thank you all so much.
Just a really, really incredible event. Thank you guys for just answering those questions and sharing your viewpoints. A really, really valuable opportunity. Did want to have one final word from the JCA and First Coast YMCA. So we have Heather Terrell and Erica Moore. One up, guys.
Good evening, everybody. First, thank you so much for coming out. My name is Heather Terrell. I'm with the JCA. On behalf of the JCA and the YMCA, thank you for attending the program tonight. Thank you so much to Friday Musicale for hosting our program this evening, and thank you to Timothy Jefferson for facilitating our discussion. And special thanks to our panelists, Dan Merkin, Regina Livingston, and Dr. Jennifer Cowart. Together Against Hate shirts are still available in the back for purchase. Thank you to everyone who signed the banner. If you have not on your way out, please feel free to do so. And I'm going to pass this to Erica.
Trying to get a pen. Hi, everyone. Erica Moore here from the First Coast YMCA. I oversee social responsibility and operations. I just wanted to give you a quick update that our next speaker series will continue each month through January, and we'll end with our Race Against Hate 5K/run, so open for our walkers, on February 25th. And I also wanted to state that we received a question from the audience around what happens when everything ends February 25th. We want you to know that this work doesn't stop. On behalf of the Y and the JCA, we will continue to do this work. We feel like our opportunities have been elevated, and we want to continue our speaker series as we move forward throughout the number of years. November 7th will be our next speaker series. It'll be all around Anti-Defamation League. Our speaker will be author Rabbi Diana. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Be sure to register ahead of time because our spaces are very limited, and we also have a survey that will come directly to your email, so we want your feedback. We want to know what other opportunities you're looking for. Thank you again on behalf of the JCA and the YMCA, and we really appreciate your time tonight. Oh, and there's food in the back, thanks to Chris. By the way, Chris works at the YMCA, but he does not work for the YMCA, but we might as well say you do, the way you've been running around today. Thank you, Chris, and thank you for everyone coming out. Thanks.
All right, thank you.